Why I believe in ghosts. Well, if you're expecting a long, closely reasoned argument about why ghosts exist, you might be in for a bit of disappointment. Because my answer is very simply, I believe in ghosts because I saw one. Now, if you don't believe in ghosts, there are two possible responses to a sighting of ghosts. Okay? The first is, I'm not telling the truth, I'm lying. The problem is, this is a very unsatisfactory answer. Absolutely, there are people who have lied about seeing ghosts. The original Amityville researchers come to mind. But it's clear, even if I, Sandy, am lying about my ghost, and I'm not, some of the people who've reported ghosts are not lying. It's logically not very satisfying to say, they're all lying in your response to ghosts. Once you take that option, you're putting yourself in the same exact category as anti-vaxxers and flat earthers, and the more evidence that piles up, you just say, well, they're all lying. Everything can't be true. So this is the answer to these fringe groups as any information that doesn't fit their worldview. They're all lying, so let's dismiss that, okay? It's not the lying thing. On to the next response, the one you use when you can tell someone's sincere, like me. Is the witness in error? Sure, I guess I could have made a mistake, but let's dig deeper. Why would a person like you not believe in ghosts? Okay, let's go into why a person doesn't believe in ghosts, assuming you don't. Is it because they're imaginary because someone told you so? Well, that doesn't make any sense, because here I can tell you that I did see one. So why is the person who told you there weren't ghosts more believable than me? You can't use an argument from authority on this. Perhaps more defendable, you don't believe in ghosts because they don't fit into your worldview. For example, if you think that there is no afterlife, or conversely, you think there is an afterlife, but everyone goes into it and they don't stick around, well, if you're right about your worldview, then ghosts can't exist. Okay, you must be correct about the afterlife. So right there, if you're wrong about the afterlife, then there could be ghosts. There are thousands of different opinions about the afterlife. I mean, I have mine. Every individual person has a slightly different view of any afterlife. Why would yours be for sure true? In fact, my own afterlife beliefs technically don't allow for ghosts. But I saw one. So to disbelieve in ghosts, here's the two things you have to put together. First, you have to believe that, first, my afterlife opinions are valid, or at least some variant of that doesn't allow ghosts. And second, that the ghosts are the spirit of dead people, and that won't work on my afterlife view. This is a reasoning not from evidence, but from some kind of logical conclusion. Now, what if ghosts are something else? I have no way of knowing that what I saw is the shade of a dead person. Okay, it could have been some other phenomenon entirely. It would still be the thing we call a ghost. If there was, in my case, white, misty things vaguely shaped like a person that move around, and we call them ghosts, if you said, well, it's not really a ghost because we don't know for sure it's a dead person, that's fine, okay? It's the thing that we call a ghost. It's like, I remember a person arguing that there weren't such thing as sea monsters. And I said, you don't believe in giant squid? You don't believe in huge prehistoric monsters that lived in the Cretaceous that ate things? As, well, those aren't monsters, you have other names. I said, well, how can you tell the difference between a giant underwater thing and saying it's a monster or not? I think you're being illogical. So what I'm saying is that simply saying you don't believe in ghosts has nothing to do with whether ghosts exist. Fishermen in the North Atlantic had seen and caught and interacted with giant squid, going back to my previous thing, for centuries. But biologists firmly stated giant squid didn't exist. This despite the fact that they actually had photographs of giant squid, and they had actual specimens. The Smithsonian had specimens of a giant squid's arm and tentacles. But giant squid couldn't exist, according to many scientists, because they were kraken, and the kraken is a myth. So, for example, there was a scientist that described and named the giant squid in 1857, but he was ignored. Proof wasn't accepted for almost 20 years after that, when a number of giant squid, for some reason, started washing up on Newfoundland. And then it was impossible to disbelieve. Now, of course, everyone says they're giant squid. I think ghosts are kind of similar, and here's why. Since literally prehistoric times, people have seen, interacted with, and reported contact with ghosts. They're actually much better attested to than giant squid, which only a few people had ever seen. Ghosts, maybe not a lot of people have seen, but they're everywhere. with every culture, from New Guinea tribes folk to industrial nations, if something is this widely attested across the world, surely it's worth some degree of investigation. Now, I'm the first one to admit that most ghost investigation is not done very scientifically, okay? But what I'm saying is that you can't refuse to examine evidence for something so universal simply because your belief says it can't be so. Something has to be behind this belief. Okay, it's something in the human brain or something out in the world around us. If the evidence is good, then you either have to say there's ghosts or say what the person saw that he or she mistook for a ghost. So this goes back to the question of what is a ghost? Let me tell my story. This is not my only ghost story. I have a couple others where I've seen ghosts, but this is the clearest viewing of a ghost that I had. First of all, I was 11 years old. My brain wasn't fully developed because I was only 11. At this time, me and my friends had been, there was a haunted house across the street from my house. Now, I say it's haunted because it was abandoned and it was cool to believe it was haunted. Later on, someone moved into the house. As far as I know, they didn't think it was haunted. But to me and my friends, at the age of 11, this house seemed haunted to us. And we told stories about it. We go in there and try to make up things about it. One friend of mine said that he saw a dark figure in the basement. I never did, but it was kind of got us thinking about ghosts. Maybe this made it possible for us to hallucinate, though I doubt it, or maybe it made us more receptive, who knows. But during this time period, at the age of 11, one day, I was not near the haunted house at all. I was actually on a different street. Okay, and it was night, and I was getting ready to go home, and I couldn't go home because I got ready to go home. I got there, I looked down the street, and there, in the middle of the street, was a huge, flowing, transparent white image. It looked like a woman in a full Victorian type dress. It was big. It was like 8 to 10 feet tall, and I couldn't see features on it. It was just kind of misty. It looked like mist. It was not raining. It was not foggy, but there it was, and it was streaming like it was rushing at me. And I was like, but as I watched it, though it kept streaming towards me, it never actually moved. It just stayed there under the streetlights, and I was like really frightened. In fact, I was so frightened that I do not remember now how I got home, because to get home, normally I would have gone past that place, and I'm pretty sure I didn't because it was terrified me. Okay, now this was my ghost. It was roughly shaped like a woman in Victorian era garb. Couldn't see a face. It was all white and misty, like made out of mist. Seemed to be moving, though it wasn't. Now, I'm not claiming that what I saw was the returning spirit of a dead person. For one thing, I saw this ghost in Utah, and while I'm sure there were some Utahns that had big, fluffy ballroom gowns with all the skirts, which this seemed to have, I doubt many Mormon pioneers actually had that. They probably just had regular, poor person dresses. But so I'm not saying this was a dead person. What I'm saying is that the phenomenon I saw would obviously be called a ghost by anyone else who'd seen it. They would see that and go, oh, a ghost. Now, could it have been an effect of the light? While there wasn't mist, there was like a drizzle. Maybe it could have been an effect of the streetlights on the drizzle. But if so, I've never seen such an effect again. And I'm 64 years old. You'd think it would have come up another time. Could it have been a hallucination? Well, if so, I've never again had a hallucination when I was awake and alert. Ever. So I personally reject this explanation. Saying that it's this one thing that's never happened before and never again seems even less likely. Could it have been a hoax? Someone trying to fool me? Maybe someone's shooting a light. But if so, no one ever seemed to take advantage of me. No one ever talked to me about it. And the ghost craze that me and my friends had, this killed it. We didn't talk about ghosts anymore. It's like seeing the actual thing squeezed it out of me. And since only other kids my age, 11 years old or younger, were interested in it, I don't think any of us had the technical expertise to do this. Plus, if they did, you'd think they'd do more than just this one thing to me. Now, could it have been a dead spirit or a demon or something else supernatural? Well, obviously, that's my go-to explanation, but I really don't know for sure. It was something, and I saw it, and I'm calling it a ghost because other apparitions like this would account for ghost stories. What I'm trying to say in this talk is that if your reason for disbelieving in ghosts is based on preconceptions, that you may want to re-examine those reasons. And I will add once more that while I do believe in an afterlife personally, the teachings of my church do not touch on the topic of ghosts, and in fact would seem to argue against it. And this does lead to some cognitive dissonance in my head. Perhaps someday I'll be able to reconcile it.